ready for your next storyteller? Tam!
I think it's, yeah. Go home. You need a liver transplant and you need to leave the country. That's what my doctor told me a month before my 30th birthday. I was living in Vietnam at the time and preparing to become the head chef of a new trendy restaurant. My doctor also told me that in the entire medical history of Vietnam, there had been only one other liver transplant done, and a doctor from South Korea had to fly in to perform it. I did not want to be patient number 2. So, as difficult as it was, I decided to end my cooking career early and move back home with my parents in Katy, Texas. My world went from a symphony of Vietnamese spices to a cacophony of medical terms and waiting. Luckily, I was able to find a hospital and a job in Houston that offered health insurance, but within a month, United Healthcare announced it would be dropping all Houston Methodist hospitals from its network. 100,000 people lost coverage that year, including me, because 2 companies were dead set on making as much profit as they could. I had to quit my job and find a new healthcare plan. So to summarize, I was 30 years old, unemployed, living at home with my parents in Katy. I had never had a relationship last longer than 9 months. And I had an incurable liver disease that was turning my eyes jaundiced. Ooh, sorry, a little too close. Turning my eyes jaundiced, and I wasn't even sure if I'd be alive in the next 2 years. I was damaged goods. I didn't think anyone could love me. How could anyone love me? And then the pandemic hit. My Hinge profile was not looking good. But by the grace of Buddha, I met Steven, a cute Vietnamese guy who overlooked all that. He didn't care that I couldn't drink. He was cool with the fact that our first date was virtual, so I wouldn't have to expose my parents to COVID. He was sensitive and sweet and didn't blink an eye when I finally told him I'd need an organ transplant. The surgery was scheduled for September 2021, 9 months after Steven and I started dating. Now remember, I'd never had a relationship last longer than 9 months before, and I also knew that studies show that men were more likely than women to leave their partners during a serious medical diagnosis. The rate of divorce among cancer patients is 2% when the man is sick versus 20% when the woman is. Needless to say, I was trying to make my liver transplant as unburdensome as possible for Steven, so that maybe this relationship could finally be the one that makes it to the 1-year mark. So you can imagine my hesitation when Steven offered to quit his job to look after me in the hospital. For so long, I had been so independent. I'm the oldest daughter of refugees. I'm used to figuring out everything on my own. I've moved to 4 different countries without anyone and without any help. That's who I was. It was hard enough for me to ask my family members to take time off work, and now this new person in my life wanted to leave his job for me. But the transplant was rapidly approaching, and so I gave in and allowed Steven to care for me in this huge way. The compromise was that once I was out of the hospital, my mom would take over my care. That first night in the ICU, seeing Steven curled up, sleeping on a cramped hospital recliner so he could be there for my 5 a.m. surgery, made me realize that he was in it for the long haul. This disease was not going to chase him away. It was time for me to let go and trust him. When I was under anesthesia, he was texting my friends updates about the surgery. When I was hooked up to every type of monitor, he braided my hair so it wouldn't get knotted up from sleeping in a hospital bed all day. When I couldn't physically speak because I was intubated, he became my advocate. When I had to learn how to relearn how to walk, he became my physical trainer. And when my mom contracted COVID and could no longer take care of me as planned, he stepped up to become my full-time caretaker. He learned how to do a saline flush, administer my IV, change out my bandages. He taught me what love was in sickness and in health, which is why it was a no-brainer when he proposed to me last year. Today, we live in Austin with our rescue dog, and our wedding is set for next March. So, amidst all the fear and the illness, the noise and ugliness of our fucked up American healthcare system, I'm grateful I found beauty in human connection and love from both Stephen and my friend Anne, who donated half her liver to me, but that's a story for another night.